Hey, boys and girls. I'm back. I'm here on my deck, and we are continuing with the wild robot. When we left off, Bright Bill was getting that strong urge to fly. It was called his instincts. So his instincts were telling him to fly. And Roz surprised me because I thought that she was going to be against migration, but it turns out she was completely on board. And it almost seems like Bright Bill is the one who's more worried than Roz is, because Roz kind of leaves us by saying, "Don't worry, I'll be fine. How bad could winter be?" And when I left you, I kind of asked the question, like, well, what could go wrong during the winter? And we talked a little bit about how cold it is and what are some problems that the weather could pose, like snow and ice. So let's read, and hopefully we will find out how bad winter can be. So chapter 53, the migration. It was the night before the migration, and Bright Bill was sleeping fitfully. Roz watched him toss and turn until he finally crawled into his mother's arms. She rocked him to sleep, just like the old days. Early the next morning, Bright Bill waddled outside and looked at the pond. The water was perfectly still. A few lazy clouds drifted above. Geese were already gathering by the beach, and then tiny claws scampered down the treetops. "So today's the day, huh?" said Chit Chat, perched on a branch. "You're going to see so many new things and meet so many new animals. And if there are any squirrels at your wintering grounds, please tell them that Chit Chat says hello." "Today is the day," said Bright Bill. "The flock will be leaving soon. Are you excited or nervous or scared?" "I'm all of those," the squirrel whispered. "Well, don't worry about your mother. I'll look after her, so you know she'll be perfectly fine." Bright Bill smiled. "I'm afraid it's time to go," said Roz as she stepped out of the nest. "Okay, Mama," said the gosling. "See you in the spring, Chit Chat." "Have a nice migration, Bright Bill." The squirrel scampered back into the treetops. "Come home with lots of exciting stories, but not too exciting because I don't want anything scary to happen to you. Goodbye." The geese were honking with excitement and hustling around as they made their final preparations. Several of the fathers huddled together discussing their flight plans, while the mothers took head count. "There you are, Bright Bill," said Loudwing, and she honked from the middle of the crowd. "We were just about to begin. May I have your attention, please?" The biggest goose. "As many of you know, my name is Longneck, and I'll be leading this year's migration. I'm asking everyone to please join your families for takeoff. Once we're all airborne, each family will take its position in our V for formation. We'll start the first leg of our journey. Are there any questions?" "I have a question," came a booming voice. "My son will not have any family with him. Where does he fit into the formation?" Everyone turned to Longneck. "He can fly with me," said the big goose. "I hear Bright Bill is a very clever flyer. I could use his help at the point." A moment later, the geese began flapping and honking and making their way into the air. A cloud of feathers floated down around the robot and her son. "You are not a gosling anymore," said Roz. "I am proud of the fine goose you have become." Bright Bill fluttered up to his mother's shoulder. "Thanks, Mama." The young goose wiped his eyes. "Is there a way that is this where we say goodbye?" "This is where we say goodbye for now. Spring will be here soon, and we'll be together again." "I'm going to miss you," said Bright Bill as he nuzzled his mother. "I'm going to miss you too," said Roz as she nuzzled her son. The goose took a deep breath, and then he shook his tail feathers, flapped his wings, and joined the flock. At first, the geese flew in a disorganized jumble, but each goose slowly drifted into position until the flock formed a wobbly V. At the lead was Longneck, and behind his left wing was Bright Bill. They circled in the sky until the V pointed south, and then the geese began their long migration. Roz climbed to the top of the tree and watched the flock slowly fade in to the horizon. You see Roz? I don't know if you can see the geese because of the light outside, but the geese are up here flying away. They're very light. Chapter 54, The Winter. The island was quiet. The migratory birds had all left, the hibernators were asleep, and everyone else began their simple winter routines, everyone but Roz. Now that she was alone, our robot didn't know what to do with herself. She stood in her gray garden and watched the sheets of ice slowly form on the pond. Sometimes she could hear her good friends the beavers going about their business beneath the ice. She wondered when she would see them again. Roz stood there until snowflakes drifted down from the sky. The flakes swirled in the breeze and slowly piled on the ground, on the trees, and on the robot. So she crouched into the nest, slid the stone door behind her, and sat in darkness. Hours and days and weeks went by without the robot moving. She had no need to move. She felt perfectly safe in the nest, and so, in her own way, the robot hibernated. Roz's body relaxed. The quiet whirling slowly stopped. Her eyes faded to black. She probably could have spent centuries like that, hibernating in total darkness. But the robot's hibernation was suddenly interrupted when a shaft of sunlight fell upon her face and carried energy back into her empty battery. Roz's body tensed. Her quiet whirling slowly started. Her eyes glowed. "Hello, I am Rozum, Unit 7134, but you may call me Roz," the robot said automatically. Then all her systems were up and running again. Roz noticed that she was surrounded by broken branches and piles of snow. The roof of the nest had caved in. The lodge was flooded with sunlight. Roz felt more energized with each passing minute, but she also felt cold. Her joints felt stiff and brittle. Her thinking was slow. She got up, cleared a spot on the floor, and made a fire. The snow inside the nest began to melt, and the robot's sensors began to thaw. When she was ready, she climbed out through the hole of the roof and into the bright, foreign landscape. Why is it foreign? This is the island that she landed on. It's the island that has become her home. What's foreign about it? Yeah, it must look really different now, all covered in snow. Do you know how after a really great snowstorm, what does your yard look like? Everything just covered and branches kind of leaning over. It almost doesn't even look like your yard. The world Roz had known was covered in a thick layer of snow. Tree limbs bent to the ground under heavy sleeves. The dark pond was now pure white. The only sounds were Roz's own crunching footsteps. Faint wisps of steam curled up the robot's body as she trudged through the forest. Roz plunged a hand into a lump of snow and pulled out a long stick. She snapped it in half and flung both pieces back to the nest. She took a few more steps and picked up a fallen tree. She hacked it into pieces and flung them back as well. What is she doing? Think about Hansel and Gretel. What did Hansel do with the breadcrumbs? Yeah, she's like making a path. She's setting reminders for herself so that she could find her way back home, because in the snow, everything in the forest is going to look the same. As she reached back down into another snowy shape, but she pulled up was not a piece of wood. It was Dart, the weasel. He was frozen solid. Roz stared at his stiff body for a moment, then decided it was best to leave the poor thing where he was. As the robot continued gathering wood, she found more victims of the cold. A frozen mouse, a frozen bird, a frozen deer. Had all the island's animals frozen to death? No, not all. There were fresh tracks in the snow. And as we know, the wilderness is filled with beauty, but is also filled with ugliness. The winter was ugly. And devastating cold front had swept down from the north and brought dangerous temperatures and huge amounts of snow. The animals had prepared for winter, but nothing could have prepared the weaker ones for those long nights when the temperatures plummeted and the wind whipped over the island. Roz returned to the nest, where the fire had melted the interior snow into a muddy soup. She took a minute to warm her body by the flames, and then she began repairs. She patched up the hole in the dome with a flat lattice work of the branches before adding a layer of mud and leaves, and soon the repairs were complete. But another snowfall might cave in the nest over again, so Roz decided to keep the fire going day and night to prevent snow from building up on the roof. The robot brought a load after load of firewood, and each time she went outside, she was reminded of the frozen weasel, mouse, bird, and deer. How many other frozen animals were hidden beneath the snow? Before going in for the night, she called out to whoever is listening, "Animals of the island, you do not have to freeze. Join me in my lodge, where it is safe and warm." All right, we're going to leave it right there. I really love the way Peter Brown kind of weaves in that circle of life while we're reading, and kind of like the beauty and also the ugliness of nature, and how the winter is so beautiful, yet animals are freezing because it's so cold. So I think in the next chapter we're going to see some beauty, because Roz has just invited all of the animals into her lodge. So let's wait and guess who is going to show up. I can't wait to read the next chapter for you, but I think I'm going to wait until next week to give you that one. I hope you enjoyed. You should have seen 3 new ones this week. Boys and girls, continue with those awesome Flipgrid videos. I want you to go back and really take some time to do the Cell the Rosm robot. I've noticed some of you have posted, but I haven't seen any that really like hit home what I think you can really do with that assignment. So I want you to really think about a commercial and think about selling something, and I want you to make a commercial for a Roz the robot. Just like be creative and think out of the box, and I can't wait to see the awesome job that you're going to do. Okay? Bye guys. I hope you enjoyed.